Hey guys, welcome to the 7-Figure Box podcast. My name is Andrew Frezza, and today we're going to be talking about my favorite interview questions. And I recorded a podcast a few episodes back about the 6 questions that I use for hiring. And that podcast was mainly about the questions that I'm asking myself when hiring. And then this podcast is really about the questions that I'm asking a potential candidate who's thinking about coming and joining our team. And these are the questions that I'll ask, usually over a series of interviews. Honestly, if you're able to get through this whole list in the first call, it's probably not a good sign because you're not really having a lot of deep conversation. So this is a list of questions that tends to focus more on the front end of the hiring process. I definitely recommend taking your time with hiring and giving yourself a chance over several different phone calls, Skype calls, in-person meetings or classes together, that you're able to get through these questions over time, and definitely take your time when hiring. Okay, it's always better to hire slow and fire fast. When we first started, we tended to do the opposite and hire fast and fire slow. I would still say that we still are slow on the firing side, but we definitely try to take our time on the hiring side as much as possible. And that's one place that we've gotten a lot better over the years. So hopefully these questions really help you guys out and see the full breadth of the things that we want to learn about someone before we really make that final decision to have them join our team. So I've kind of broken it up into different sections here. We're going to first kind of hit on like general personal info. From there, we'll go into kind of their interest in our gym specifically. Then we'll talk about their current position at the gym they're currently at, assuming that they're already coaching at a gym, and then what they're looking for out of the next position, okay? So first thing I want to know when I get on a call with someone, even if I've gotten a really detailed email from them, and hopefully if I'm doing the call with them, it's because I got a great first cover letter email from them. But the first thing I want to know is I want them to tell me a little bit about their story, their background, how they got into CrossFit, where they're currently at with their coaching career and what gym they're currently at. And even if they've already written a lot of these things in email, it's always really good to hear it from them in person or over the phone. Okay, so that's the first thing I'm going to ask. And usually this question or these couple questions should spark a pretty long conversation. All right, we should get a lot of information on their personal background, whether they grew up playing sports or did fitness or what they grew up doing. It's always a plus if they did team sports. It's usually a good sign. I find that those are some really good candidates if they have that team sports background. We should be able to learn a little bit about their family. We should be able to learn about their previous coaching experience. And then the one thing that I always look for is, what was the moment that they fell in love with CrossFit? And does that moment resonate with kind of how we view CrossFit? You know, are they getting into it because they saw the CrossFit Games on TV? Or are they getting into it because they saw the impact that it had on one of their best friends and how it changed their life? So the love story of how someone fell in love with CrossFit is really important, because I think that kind of dictates how that person views CrossFit and the service it provides, really for the lifetime that they're doing this. So I think that's a really important moment. And again, this part of the conversation should take a while. And when you're the person asking the questions, don't rush to the next set of questions. What I want you to do is really listen sincerely to what this person is telling you, and use your curiosity and follow-up questions to guide the conversation. So don't jump to the questions that we're going to go over here in a second. Start to ask any follow-up questions. Oh, great. What college did you go to? You know, how did you decide on that major? Start to ask all these little minor follow-up questions that seem minor, but really what you're trying to do is figure out, do you enjoy talking to this person, or does this conversation feel forced, or are you guys able to get into this kind of a mutual flow state where you're really both enjoying going back and forth? And you should be the one asking most of the questions, but there should also be some back and forth where they're asking you questions as well. After that initial kind of personal side, from there, we really want to see is, where was their interest peaked with the job posting and their interest in CrossFit Palm Beach. So we want to know is, what do they know about CrossFit Palm Beach? How did they hear about us? Have they done their research? Have they listened to our podcast? They've been to our website, seen our programming, followed our social media pages. What do they know about us so far? Okay. From there, we want to put the ball in their court a little bit to say, what about what you've seen makes you think it would be a good fit? And this is one of my favorite questions because I think I talked about this in the other podcast, but a lot of people, when you ask them that question, will start to talk about themselves and their needs. And it's a good sign when someone can talk about their needs and what they're looking for in terms of a full-time position, but really talk about it from the perspective as you as the gym owner, as the one hiring, and really the community that you have and you've built, whether they feel like you've done something really special. And if they're kind of not necessarily talking you up in that sense, but they see something special about what you have, it's usually a good sign that they're really drawn to it and they already see something that resonates with them and they've kind of done some of the legwork for you. From there, we like to talk about our core values. And one thing that I would recommend for you guys that are putting out job postings is put your core values in your job post. Show what makes you different than the gym down the road. So we have a really detailed job post that we use, that we've edited each time we've had to hire. And it really helps people see what we're about and what we value. So one of the questions that I'll kind of ask this initially in one of the first interview questions, and then I'll ask this again down the road when we're really deciding, at the final decision who we want to hire. And what I'll ask is, did you see the core values in the hiring post? And then which one of those core values really stood out to you most? Which is the one that resonated with you most, that you feel like is going to be the easiest for you to abide by once you're a part of our team? And then on the flip side, which of those core values do you maybe agree with, but you feel like you'd have to work on? It's not something that comes as naturally to you, and it's something that you may have to work on over time. So I really like that question, both early and later on in the interview process, to see if our values line up and why. From there, we start to move into what their current position looks like and what are their feelings about their current position and why are they looking towards moving to a different position. Okay, and this is working under the assumption that that person is already working at a CrossFit gym or fitness facility and is in our space already. If your gym is not as established as ours, you might not necessarily be hiring someone with a ton of experience, but hopefully they have some experience. So I want to know is, what does their current weekly schedule look like? How many classes do they coach? What responsibilities do they have outside of coaching? I want to get an idea of what is their workload, what is their feelings about that workload. And sometimes people say, oh yeah, I coach 4 or 5 classes in a row, and I'll ask follow-up questions to ask them, okay, how is that? And they should be able to point out it's pretty tough. It's pretty tough to coach 4 or 5 classes in a row, and they really got to dig deep. But usually those people can kind of touch on some of the negative things about what they do without dwelling on it, and they can kind of move past it and take ownership of how they try to work through those issues, even though it might be tough to work 5 classes in a row, or it might be tough to close the gym late one night and then open the next day. The next question I'll ask is, why are they looking to leave their current position? Okay, so I want to know is, do they have a path at their current gym for a full-time coach or to do more than they're currently doing? Is it because they're unhappy, or is it because they're happy but their gym just can't provide what they're looking for? And if they are unhappy, what I want to know is, what have they done to try to communicate that to their owner or manager at their current gym, right? So it's a really key difference. One of the biggest things that we found is communication is such an important part of building a strong team and building a successful gym. So if someone's unhappy and they haven't ever communicated that to their current owner, there's a good chance that no matter how good of a situation you provide to them, that they're going to be unhappy about something. And if they don't have the ability to express that in a one-on-one sincere way, then there's going to be issues down the road. So I always look for someone being proactive about talking with their owner, expressing themselves, expressing that they're not happy about certain things. And if things just don't work out and they don't line up, no problem. That makes sense. But if they've never taken that step, then that says a lot about the type of person you might be bringing in. Another thing I like to ask is, what's something that their current gym does really well? Okay, so if they're in a negative situation, I want to know that they're able to find the positives and they're able to see that, yeah, I might be unhappy in my current situation, but I'm learning, I'm growing. There's still opportunities for me to get better, and there's things that I've learned at my current gym that have made me better. It's not my ultimate place I want to be, but it's somewhere that I have learned a lot and could continue to learn a lot. It's just not perfect for me, okay? Another thing I want to know is the flip side. What's something that their current gym could improve? And again, going back to what I said earlier, is have they expressed this to their owner, to their other coaches, to their managers, and how have they gone about communicating that to them? Did they send an email? Did they set up an in-person conversation? And if there's stuff that they feel could be improved, but they've never communicated it, again, that's a big red flag. There's probably going to be issues with you if you were to hire them. Next thing I want to know is, when they're coaching classes currently, I want them to do a little bit of an assessment on themselves. So what's something when coaching that they do consistently really well right now? And another way to ask that is, what do you feel are your strengths when coaching? We also want to know the opposite. So what are you working on right now as a coach? And in a typical week of classes, what's something that you may do well with some classes, but you could do better with others? You're working on to do better, okay? So I want to know that, one, they have the awareness to know what things they do well and they can recognize some good in their own coaching. But then two, they can do constructive criticism, and that they're self-aware enough to be able to evaluate themselves based on their coaching without necessarily needing outside feedback. Because no matter how much we try to provide coaches development and coaching feedback from an owner or head coach standpoint, it's on our coaches ultimately to provide it for themselves the majority of the time. There's only so many classes we can watch and take and evaluate, and ultimately we need coaches that can grow by themselves in our environments with direction from us, but not constant 100% all the time attention. So it's really important that you have coaches that have that self-awareness. And then one other question I really like to ask is, what type of athlete do you enjoy coaching most, right? Is it someone that just likes coaching competitive athletes? Is it someone who's not aware enough to say, oh, I love coaching everybody? I think, that answer is a very generic answer. I think, they can say, oh, I really enjoy coaching everybody because I enjoy new athletes because we get to really, start from scratch with them, and I enjoy working with competitors because we get to really dive deep into the details and kind of nerd out on stuff. Those are more the answers that you're looking for. If they just say, oh yeah, I like coaching everybody, typically they don't have enough experience to realize why they like coaching or working with certain types of athletes. And a good coach can find positives in coaching all types of athletes. Another thing I like to see about their current situation is, what does their current training schedule look like? And do they regularly take classes at the gym that they're at currently? And we have a strong culture here where we're constantly promoting classes. So I'm a little bit lenient with other gyms and coaches who say, oh yeah, I take classes, once or twice a week, but for the most part I do my own training because it lines up better with the schedule, because I know it can be a cultural thing. But ultimately, I need to see someone who's one, loves taking classes. They love walking the walk and doing what they're putting on the whiteboard every day. But that then two, that they live with integrity, and they show their members that, hey, I do what you do and I'm not above it. And that's really a key thing, is they never think they're above the classes. Okay. And then another thing I like to ask them, and this is just kind of a one-off question, but what are they currently reading, watching, listening to? What's the last book that they've read? Do they listen to any podcasts? We're really big about a growth mindset and learning, and we want to be surrounded by other people who are pushing the boundaries and constantly looking for the best of what's out there, looking to grow and develop personally. So those are another question that I really like to kind of end that section with. From there, the final section, we want to know is, what are they looking for in this next position? Where do they want to go from here? So we'll ask, what do you look for in your ideal CrossFit gym? So assuming they're at a gym already and they're somewhat unhappy, or it's not fully providing for them, I like to give them kind of a blank slate to say, okay, well, what would your ideal gym look like? Or what do you feel like makes a great gym? And it's really common, especially in our current culture, it's easy to be pessimistic. It's easy to find the negative about stuff. It's easy to look at a class and point out how it could be better, how a coach could have done a better job. But it's hard to give them the specific action steps to get better. It's hard to be very clear about what you do want, not just what you don't want or what you don't like. So I like to see a person that can be very clear about what does their ideal situation look like, and hopefully that matches up with what we have and what we're creating. And then within that, I also like to ask, what does the ideal position or career opportunity look like for you? So it's kind of started the gym as a whole, but then now what does your role within that ideal gym look like? And you can break that down to say, like, what would your perfect day or perfect week look like? How many classes would you coach? What roles would you do outside the gym? Would you wake up early? Would you close the gym every night? Would you sleep in and close? What elements make up the perfect day or perfect week for you? And then I always like to ask this specifically, I kind of mentioned it, but outside of coaching classes and doing personal training sessions, what are some roles that you're passionate about as it relates to the gym business as a whole? So it could be things like programming or nutrition coaching. It could be front desk, social media, sales, marketing, cleaning, maintenance, all these different categories. I want to get an idea of what things are really passionate about and if those line up with the things that we have available. Last question that I'll ask is, in terms of your passion and excitement level, rank CrossFit classes, beach fit classes, and personal training sessions in order from most passionate to least passionate. Okay, and we want to coach, and we're typically bringing on coaches that need to have a passion for all three. They can have preferences in there, but they need to be slight preferences. We can't have a big difference between what they enjoy doing between those three, because we need them to be about everything that we offer at CrossFit Palm Beach and not just a specific category of what we have to offer. Okay, so that kind of wraps everything up. We start personal, then we start to talk about their interest in CrossFit Palm Beach. Then we go into their current position, and then we talk about what they're looking for out of their next position. But again, these questions don't really happen too much in this clear, natural progression. Usually it happens over the course of several interviews, several Skype calls, and we might only focus on really the personal stuff in that first couple of calls. But when you guys are kind of evaluating how these questions went, it's not about necessarily the content of the answers that these potential coaches are giving you. It's really about the feeling you're getting. Are you resonating with this person? Are you enjoying the conversation with this person? Do you feel like they're a peer? Do you feel like they're someone that you would spend a lot of time with? So don't get wrapped up too much in the questions themselves. Ask a lot of follow-up questions and questions that are going to put you on little mini tangents to see if you guys can really get a balanced and cohesive conversation out of it. So hopefully this helps you guys that are hiring. And if you guys have any go-to questions that you love to ask in the interview process, feel free to send me an email or reach out to me through Instagram or Facebook. You can shoot me an email at andrew@CrossFit Palm Beach. Good luck, guys.